Hey there everybody, hope you're doing well. Thanks for joining me for the first video with my new focus for this channel, which is about how living in this amazing place up here in Iwate in Japan is changing my artwork and for the better, and the places that inspire me around here. This is an amazing beach that's near Taro, which is just north of Miyako. It's just a small village, but the coastline around here is just absolutely stunning. Now, along with obviously showing you the place in Japan and the artwork that presents, I want to give you a little bit of an inside track of how life is panning out here in Japan. So today's video and artwork that we're going to look at creating is about one of the things that I really should have made better efforts with before coming to Japan, and my biggest regret really more than anything, and that is I really wish that I'd spent more time learning Japanese before I came. It can be pretty isolating at times when you can't speak the language. So that may sound like a really negative thing to say, like my biggest regret before coming to Japan was not learning the entirety of the Japanese language. Obviously you have to be realistic about these things, but I have to obviously be honest about things as well, that if you're thinking of maybe coming here to work or live for even just for a short while, I'd certainly want to make sure that your language skills are just a little bit better than what mine were, which were in reality non-existent. I thought that by being able to read hiragana and katakana that would be somehow a big help, and certainly it was a bit of help, but when it came down to it, that really didn't help me learn or understand the language that was all around me. The simplest of things, even now, still confuse me. Sometimes that's wrapped up with etiquette, not wanting to look like a rude gaijin by presuming things are a certain way, and yeah, it makes the situation sometimes frustrating, and when you get it right you feel like, wow, I am actually making progress to these things, which is pretty awesome. So yeah, before you come to Japan, make sure you learn a bit more than just hiragana and katakana and konnichiwa, because whilst that will get you a little way, you're going to have a very, very long way to go from that. So for this piece, I wanted to basically somehow symbolise that experience of not really understanding what's going on and living in a world where wakaranai is my favourite phrase. So I wanted to capture that, maybe that sense of isolation that I sometimes have felt, not being able to understand the simplest of things, and just sort of symbolise that whilst I don't understand everything, I'm definitely appreciating everything. I mean, for example, the backdrop here along the coastline of Iwate, it just stuns me every time I find a new place like this to enjoy. So I somehow want to incorporate something about that, but also a little bit about where I'm actually living, not sort of like a complete fantasy, shall we say, albeit I may embellish it a bit. So that's basically the theme for this piece of artwork, is that feeling of perhaps isolation and separation from the rest of the world that's outside at the moment. Yeah, so let's go and have a little explore around the area. Wow, this is just looking amazing down here. The sunlight in these rocks just looks incredible. This is exactly the spot that I was thinking of for this picture that I'm going to draw. Wow, just look at it over there. Let's get me out of the shot. Doesn't that look amazing? Okay, I'm pretty sure that I've actually found the backdrop that I want to use for this piece of artwork that I'm going to create. I'm going to feature one of my characters that I've been working on that is actually going to be for a future manga that hopefully I end up drawing in the near future. She's called Saki-chan and she's got a bit of an attitude. I suppose if anything, she's just how I would like to be if I could be anything I could be in the world. So I think this is going to just make the best backdrop for that. And somehow I'm going to use this sort of almost viewing platform that we have here as part of the picture. I'm going to combine a couple of other elements in it though, which are going to emphasise that feeling of looking out onto an ocean that sense of separation and isolation in the picture. So got a couple of ideas in mind for that. So this stuff is delicious. ちょっと高いね。ちょっと高い. Just noticed that I think these 3 rocks have names. It's like one's, I can never be sure of the exact kanji reading, but one of them's Onaiwa or Joiwa or something like that. So the girl rock. The big one, of course, is Otoko Iwa, and the other one is not sure. Can't read that kanji here. Don't know. That looks a bit like oh, as in big, but it's not. So, I hope you enjoyed some of the footage that you saw sort of around Taro where I was walking, and I've been able to actually take some of the things that I saw on that little bit of a walk that we did and actually turn that into something that is something that I've wanted to work on for a little while, so sort of like a manga panel. So I thought I'd show you some of the sort of things that I've been up to. This is Saki-chan. Now, this was an idea that I very idly drew in my my study book, which basically notebook that I use for practicing my Japanese and so forth. And this character kind of was, you can see over here that there's another character. This isn't actually Saki because it's a little bit different, not massively, but a little bit more cartoony or more sort of cutesy manga style, shall we say. But this just sort of kind of came from nowhere really, and really fitted what I've been looking to create for a while, which is sort of like a kind of a sort of like an anti-hero almost, but with a great deal of attitude. So perhaps an idealised version of myself. If I could be anybody, it would probably be Saki. So or Saki rather. So anyway, so this is something, I mean, I sort of sketched it originally, obviously, to sort of make sure that I've got it right. You can see that I've worked on that, and that was actually about 2 weeks ago now. So, and then obviously inked it, and I did another piece of artwork with her in, which you'll see at some point. But that wasn't obviously the pose that I wanted for this particular panel, and this is basically the result of some of that work. So here you can see I'm getting closer, but I wasn't very happy with the shoulders and the neckline. It was a bit, didn't really kind of work for me. So I kind of finalised it as this version here, which is still not quite right. There's still a bit too much sort of, I don't know how to describe it, but it just feels like the shoulders aren't really properly connected to the neck, as it were. So anyway, I worked on some other ideas. So obviously you saw the vending machine that I saw at the top of the Sannoiwa rocks, or just the Sannoiwa, and that just sort of gave me an idea for something that I've wanted to do for a little while. So, and just working on various sort of sketches of various different panels, and what's come from that is this manga panel here. So this is what I've actually finished. You can see that this is obviously traditional sort of Japanese reading order. So we're going to go from right down, and then to the final sort of image here. Now you can tell that clearly me practicing this stuff is going to be a good thing, because sometimes I get carried away when I'm doing my inking. Now this would not obviously stand if this was being submitted to an editor or something like that, because clearly this buckle detail has gone over the actual line of the panel. It'd be okay if it was somewhere in this area where you could actually deliberately go outside of the panel and so forth, but you know, as a stylistic choice. But here, no, this is very much the bottom of the page really. So if you imagine this as in a manga volume, yeah, this just wouldn't work. So, but overall, I've actually managed to sort of capture Saki very well there, and you can see how I've managed to sort out this neck and shoulder line, so it's a little bit more straighter, which means that it feels a bit more like there is actually a collarbone there rather than just sort of like flesh, as it were. Oh, and just very quickly, one other thing I wanted to point out was the fact that I'd actually started just roughly sketching out some ideas for how the foliage may look for the main panel, as it were. So you can hear it's got some acer or maple leaves or something similar to that. This is an acer leaf here, and then up here I've just got these pine trees, and just looking at how those looked and that, and I just sketched that from a reference photo that I took, not actually at the Sannoiwa, but actually in one of the school car parks that I work at. So but they were there, so that basically gives me the basis for the kind of style of foliage that will be in the background. So Always good to try these things out. Well, so there it is, folks. Hopefully some of that came out in the recording of me actually finishing this off, but I made a few last minute changes. Basically, as I was putting the scene, I just felt like maybe the telegraph pole is just a bit too much, and I really wanted to get the feeling of there being sort of some open expanse of water, which of course there actually is in reality, and the thought of looking out onto the sea, which I really wanted Saki-chan to have. So yeah, a few little changes there, but I think it's all for the better overall. But yeah, so the next thing to do is to take both of these pages down to Lawson where I can scan them in, and then I can add some of the final shading digitally using Photoshop. So there it is, all finished. I hope you enjoyed watching that speed draw process. I know it's not an instruction video, but there is actually a few links in the video description which will explain some of the techniques that I use, such as that Photoshop shading, how I use half-toning to create those almost sort of faux manga screens, so do check that out. But overall, I'm very pleased with the result, how we've been able to take an idea that started from walking at the Sannoiwa and Taro and getting those ideas of what I wanted to be able to express and then laying it out into a manga panel. I've had a lot of fun doing it, and yes, there may be a few things that I would like to correct about the final result, but to be honest with you, that's the whole point of this channel. I'm very open with everybody who watches this that I don't know everything. That's why I am in Japan, to further my drawing skills, to practice and, if not perfect, at least enjoy it more and just see how my skills develop through what I see and what I show you on this channel. So I hope you enjoyed it. I'm certainly happy with the result anyway. So just a little sneaky peek for next week's episode. I have some more artwork of Saki-chan here. Now, I worked up a few concepts even as part of the process of the manga panel that we've been working on in this video, and I want to show you how these ideas came to me, the sights and the sounds that inspired me when creating those, and how I'm going to use an old computer from the 1980s to do digital artwork on using those concepts. Now, some of you who are familiar with my channel will know that that computer is the Commodore Amiga. Now, that may seem a bit strange to you. Why would you use such an old computer? But for me, it's just another tool in the toolbox. It's a bit like having your favourite paintbrush or your favourite brand of pencil, or perhaps your favourite sketchbook brand. It's just another tool for expressing the things that I enjoy. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this first revamped episode of Pixel Vixen in Japan. I guess that all it remains for me to say is see you soon. Peace! So it's come to that part of the video where I mention that I'm on Patreon. From as little as $2 a month, you can get early access to content, exclusive artwork through the post, your name mentioned on videos, as well as tips that I don't publish to the public. You can find a link in the video description below. Your subscription to my channel will also help me ensure that I can bring the latest content here from Japan.